Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are giving their insights and wisdom here, sharing it with you so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses scale through outside the box visibility strategy. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. My guests and I are excited to have you here with us. Please stay to the end because we have a special gift for you. But without further ado, I want to dive in. This is going to be a really cool conversation. I've been excited for this. My guests and I had a brief conversation before scheduling this podcast. I was so excited about this. I couldn't wait. It's been like 2 weeks since we've talked. So I'm excited to dive in. So welcome Stacy Richter with Live Lingua to the podcast. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thanks, Heidi. I'm looking forward to this as well. It's going to be so much fun today.
Absolutely. So, Stacy, can you share a little bit about yourself, about Live Lingua, and your role within it?
You bet. So the short version here is I'm the CEO at Live Lingua. We're an online language school working with students to learn a second language, including Spanish, English, French, German, pretty much all of the major languages you can think of. But if I go all the way back to the beginning, the medium version of this, Heidi, is I started my career a lot like most entrepreneurs, right? Where our parents are telling us to go to school, get good grades. And when you finish school, you come out, get a good job, work that job for your career, hopefully retire, pay off your mortgage, and have a great 15 years left of your life. And that's exactly how I started. That was my family. So that's what I did. I went to school, got good grades, all right, came out of university and started my career job. Okay. I thought I was in my glory because I'm working with a Fortune 500 company worldwide. But the job I got fresh out of university was working collections. So collections on delinquent car payments. So you can imagine how not fun that was as a first job. And believe it or not, I had to have a degree to work at this company. So it didn't take me long to figure out, yeah, this is probably not going to be for me. But I didn't quite learn my lesson yet. I went to a smaller corporate organization in oil and gas doing sales and marketing there. And what I found out was it was the same story, just I was a little closer to the top and it was a little bit more family drama because it was a small family business. And I'm just like, yeah, this is probably not how my story is going to end either. So I did the only thing that I knew to do, and it was go out and get more education. Right. So I pursued a master's degree because what I was told, go to school, get good grades. And one thing that I learned in taking my master's in business was one of my professors told me, he's like, Stacy, you are probably going to outgrow your position. You may even outgrow the company. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I finished my 2-year program in about 18 months. So I finished really, really quickly. And the day I graduated from my MBA, I walked into my sales manager's office and I handed him a resignation. And he thought it was a joke because it actually was April Fool's Day. And I had to drive 3 hours north to go to his office because he was in a different city. He's like, Stacy, this is a long way to go for an April Fool's joke. And it's not very funny.
You're committed.
I'm like,
You're committed to that.
I'm committed. And it wasn't a joke. And I resigned my position. I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go. And I just knew that wasn't the end of my story. So literally a couple of days later, a very close friend and colleague of mine heard I wasn't working and calls me up. He's like, I've been running this communications consulting agency for a year. He's like, I think we should get into the energy market. You know about marketing and PR and all that great stuff. He's like, why don't we start an agency together? And so that's what we did. And we started this agency at his kitchen table, like a lot of startups. And our very first conversation as partners was, Stacy, we have enough money in our bank account to pay both of us for 3 months. After that, we only have enough money in the bank account to pay one of us. So you know what the writing on the wall is, like, we got to get this going and get going. And truthfully, we never looked back. We grew that agency over the course of 4 or 5 years by the time I exited, from his kitchen table to 4 or 5 offices across North America, including Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, like some big major markets. And it was an amazing time. So that brings me all the way to Live Lingua, where I was working on my portfolio of businesses for acquisition. And I was actually consulting Live Lingua. And what ended up happening is while I was building their marketing systems and consulting, I fell in love with the business, fell in love with the students and the team and everything about what we do. And working with the co-founders, decided to exit them from the business so they could pursue other passions. And I took over CEO, and that was 2.5 years ago. We've never looked back.
I just want to say a moment, and I'm going to take this on a little bit of a different tangent than my first question I had planned for you, just FYI.
Sure.
No nerves here. Like it's going to be easy,
No.
but I'm very intrigued with your journey. And on this podcast, we don't typically hear the full journey. And I'm sure there's way much more to that conversation than you shared with us. We got we got the cliff notes of that, but I really appreciate you sharing that because two things. I just shared, what was it? You said something about your kitchen table. And I literally wrote a post yesterday about starting my business at my kitchen table. And I want to hear kitchen table stories. And here you are sharing your kitchen table story. So that was really cool how that, how you put it out there, the world creates and makes it happen. And I love those kitchen table stories. So for those of you listening, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, like if you can leave a comment for us on that platform that you're listening to us to, please do. We would love for you to share. I would love for you to share, and I'm sure Stacy would too. Share your kitchen table story if you have one, because you're going to inspire, and that's what we're here. I have a client who calls himself an inspirator, and I love it. We're here to inspire through our journeys and our stories. So I just wanted to take that moment to just acknowledge you and say thank you for sharing that, because we don't get to hear that much on this podcast. I have another one where we share stories, but this one we don't get to hear that much. And I think that's an important piece for founders and an entrepreneur starting a business, is you get to hear the journey, because where you are now, everything brought you here, and we can only connect the dots looking backwards. And there's things in our world, things in our space, things in our life, things in our business that we're like, why is this happening to me? And it's happening for you because it's getting you to where you need to be. And we don't know that in the moment most of the time. I guarantee you, if I spoke with you 5 years ago, you'd be like Live Lingua, unless it was 5 years ago that you joined, right? But if you wouldn't think of that when you were working when you were at that kitchen table building that other business. And I'm intrigued also on how you came into the business. So I'd love to talk more about that for those people who are like, oh, I'm working and I don't know that I'll ever get there. You came into this company not as a CEO, and you're the CEO now. So that's growth. And this is a business growth spotlight. So can you talk a little bit into that before we dive into more about Live Lingo? Because we're definitely going to get there. I want people to know who you are, what you
100%.
do. But I would love to learn more about that journey and how that transition happened.
Totally. And you know what, Heidi, I'm getting goosebumps because when you talk about how things line up and they're meant to be, they can never be planned that way. So when I was in university, this is where I'll start. One of my career goals coming out of my undergraduate degree in marketing and information systems was I want to be the CEO of a major multinational corporation. Okay. Now, my plan was a Fortune 500 level company. And when I came out of university, my first job was actually with Daimler Chrysler. Okay. So a very large, and that was my career. I'm like Fortune 500. I'm going to start at the bottom in collections, collecting delinquent car payments. And someday I'm going to be the CEO of this company. Well, it only took me less than 2 years to figure out that was never going to happen. So every point from then till now has led to me being the CEO of Live Lingua, a multinational or an international company. We deal in 80 some countries between clients and staff. So every moment from then till now. So thinking about that kitchen table moment was a eye opener because I got to cut my teeth in entrepreneurship at that moment. But it was through that agency. It was a marketing agency we started, marketing and consulting. And over the course of 4 years, I realized that this is why we exited, was the consultant game was a lose-lose for us as an agency and for our clients. Because at the end of the day, we're selling our best ideas for a small retainer, right? Even if we're charging $100,000, $200,000 for an idea and implementation, the people we're selling it to are making millions. So my idea towards the end of my career in our agency was, why are we giving away all of our best ideas? Why don't we sell our own ideas and we can go and make millions? If we're half as good at marketing as we pitch to our clients, this should be a pretty simple prospect. but I couldn't convince my partners. They wanted to be in the service space. So I actually found an opportunity to go to buy companies and use my marketing expertise to help grow them. So I got out of the consultant industry and service business into acquisitions. But the difference being, I was taking my marketing knowledge, my entrepreneurship experience, and applying it to businesses that I owned, as opposed to just businesses owned by others that I consulted. And through that time, I've had construction companies, I had an e-commerce business, I even had a fintech venture, right? Financial services in lots of different industries. So when I came into Live Lingua as a consultant, you're right, 20, 25 years ago, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to go run a language school. Never even would have thought about it. Couldn't have written it down. But all of those experiences of buying companies, having some wins, some exits, and don't get me wrong, we've had quite a few losses as well and made some mistakes, has led me to this point 2.5 years ago when I just happened to start consulting a business that happened to be in language schools that needed a CEO to exit the founders. But had I not had all those other entrepreneurship experiences, I wouldn't have been, equipped to be the CEO of the company today. So that is the journey. And when I look back on all the relationships I've had, they all happened exactly the way we were supposed to get me here, but I couldn't have ever planned that out, ever. So that's the exciting part. What I love about what you do, what we do, what your listeners are doing is everything will work out exactly the way it's meant to, but even bigger than you could have imagined. So here I am, 20 plus years later, the CEO of an international organization doing business worldwide.
Yeah, and that's so exciting. And I love how you just shared all of that. And it started with your vision. It started with you to, and it's not just a vision. People have visions, they have ideas, but they don't declare them and they don't take steps to go forward with them. And they're worried about, oh my gosh, I need to be there in a year. It took 20 years. At the grand scheme of it all, 20 years is really not that long of a time, right? Because you had a lot of learnings. And had you not had all those learnings, you wouldn't be successful as the CEO now. If you were a CEO 2 years into it, you would it probably wouldn't have worked. You wouldn't have all those experiences that you needed to have to be successful now. So yeah, this is so cool. So Stacy, thank you for that. Because I love that you said, this is what I wanted. I declared it. And you landed the Fortune 500. You thought that's what it was going to be. And you're like, realized quickly, like, no. And you weren't settling. You also weren't settling. You're like, okay, you mentioned that you left. You didn't have a job at one point. You left your second one or third one because you're like, I know this isn't where I want to be. You actually, on April Fool's, like drove hours to do it because you're like, I know this isn't in my heart or in your gut. You knew it. And I really want to bring, awareness to that too, and a gold nugget to that for those of you listening. Like we get to trust our gut, and that's one thing I'm learning now, and I learned recently because I used to ignore it, and it put me in binds. And if you really trust your gut, and like, listen, my happiness comes first. I know there's more for me, and that's where that vision starts to come. And you don't need to know the how. That's another thing you mentioned. Like you didn't know how, but it's here. I love that. You don't know the how, but it's here. So, okay, let's talk about Live Lingua and how you help organizations. So why should an organization invest in language training for its teams, and why now more than ever before?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Heidi. I appreciate you asking that because I don't think anybody would argue investing in your teams is a bad idea. Right? I think, across the board, universally, that's a good thing to do. Invest in your people. Right. One of my favorite quotes is the answer to a question is, what if I invest in somebody's training and they leave? And I don't want to misquote it. And I don't know who said the response, but the response verbatim was, what if you don't invest in them and they stay? And that stuck with me for a very, very long time. So I don't think anybody would disagree. Investing in your people is ever a bad idea. Most people invest in their people by giving them sales courses or put them through sales training if they're in the BD world, or they go through some sort of personal skills training in how to be persuasive and work with people, right? So we go through all those soft skills. But I'll tell you what, every organization does that, right? Every successful organization, I should say, does that. So it's not going to differentiate you. It's not going to make you stand out from everybody else. Okay. So a couple of things have happened over the last even just 2 years, but we can even go back 5 years, is that the international markets are opening, whether you want to participate or not. Okay. So either you're going out competing internationally outside of your city, your state, your country. And even if you choose not to, I know others who are. So they're coming to your jurisdiction. So with AI and tools like where YouTube and Zoom and all of these electronic tools, we no longer have to be in the jurisdiction we want to do business in. So that is opening up. You can either look at it as an opportunity, but I guarantee you it's a threat. So the challenge here, though, is people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. Okay. So we can go through all the soft skills to learn how to get people to trust us and like us and all of those things that we learn along the way. But I'll tell you what, when you're doing business internationally, the number one thing you can do to get somebody to know, like, and trust you is speak their language. Even if it's poor, even if it's not fluent, even just the attempt is enough to make somebody absolutely light up. So even though they may speak your language, if it's English and they, roughly speaking English, and maybe it's Latin America and you go and you start to have a conversation in Spanish with them, their demeanor changes 100%. And that's not just true of Spanish in Latin America or Spain. It's true of, all European countries, whether it's Germany or France, everywhere you could possibly do business. And even if it's in your home country, chances are somebody's from somewhere else. When you speak their language, their face absolutely lights up because it's something they're so not used to. Okay. The challenge is that it's not an easy thing to do. And technology is, you can either look as a disruptor to this or as an enabler. And with the translation apps that are available, the AI that's all available, it makes language transactional. But if you think what learning a language does between relationships of know, like, and trust, is when you have a conversation, it means understanding. You make a connection to that person, and that is something technology cannot replace. And that's where we work with organizations who are doing business cross-culturally, not just geographically, but cross-culturally, outside their organization or within their organization. And the language and culture that comes along with learning the language creates an understanding you cannot manufacture, you cannot replace anywhere else doing anything else.
Yeah, I mean, just think even in this country where somebody may not know the English language, but they try. We have
Yeah.
more empathy and more like we want to see them succeed, and we'll do everything we can to help them and figure out what
Yeah,
what they're saying and vice versa. And I
totally.
think I the whole time you were talking about that, I'm like, it made me smile because I'm thinking about if I was overseas and I'm trying to flub something, I would kind of laugh at myself, and that
Yeah,
breaks down any of those
totally
uncomfortableness,
does.
right? Because
Yeah,
it kind of like it's like an icebreaker, right? So
yeah,
we don't have to take ourselves so serious, but people care when you show you care. And by
yeah,
you attempting and trying to speak their language, you're showing them that you actually care and respect them. And that goes a long way. Yeah, I so good.
totally. Yeah.
So Stacy, what are some of the common mistakes that organizations make when they implement language programs, and how can they avoid those mistakes?
Yeah, there's a long, long list. So let me narrow this down to the top three, right? The first is they don't give enough time for the strategy to pay off at the end of the day. Listen, learning another language, even to getting to a conversational level, never mind fluency, just conversational, takes time and investment on the behalf of the people who are learning, but also on the organization who's investing in this. The results are not going to come immediately. At the end of the day, I know when I pay for digital ads on Meta or Google, I can see a result or not the result immediately. This is not that. So the mistake is not having the expectation of the accurate timeline for what the return is going to be. Okay, that's number one mistake, is misunderstanding what the timeline needs to be on the return of this investment. The second mistake is thinking that the return is external. Okay, right? So it's, if I'm training sales development people who are traveling to Latin America and how to speak Spanish, the second mistake is assuming that the biggest return is coming from the sale from those people who are transacting in Latin America. Realistically, the biggest benefit that comes from that is really internal. So when you train somebody to speak a language, it does a couple of different things. it changes the way they think because they have to literally use a different part of their brain, especially as adult learners, right? We have to reconfigure our brain to learn a second language. It just lights up different parts. When they do that, all of a sudden they become more creative, right? They become more strategic. So the second mistake is assuming that the immediate payoff is coming from a transaction from somebody we want to do business with because I learned how to speak another language. Okay. Then the third mistake is not giving the people the top-down commitment to do the work. Okay. One of the hardest things to do in life is go to the gym and become healthy. The second hardest thing to do in life is learn another language. But they're both the same. They take time and persistence, and nobody can do it for you,
Right.
right? I work out quite a bit, as much as I like to and can. Nobody can do that for me. If I want to have a healthy body, nobody can do it for me. It doesn't matter how much money I have. Nobody can do that for me. Similar to learning another language, nobody can do it for you. But the pressure from somebody, and let's say it's an employee or a teammate, when you invest them to learn language and we put so much pressure on them to perform almost immediately, that's the mistake, is not giving people time and the support to be able to actually go through the steps that will legitimately change them as an individual and a professional. So those are the top three, and I could probably list off 50 different mistakes.
Yeah. And that so it's important to know this isn't an immediate transformation. We're
Yeah,
playing the long game with this.
100%.
Yeah. So Stacy, can you break down how language training impacts the triple bottom line of people, partnerships, and profits?
Absolutely. So when we invest in our people, they become better individuals, right? So again, they think differently, they behave differently when they start doing it, and they get more confidence. Okay. And of course, that investment comes back to us not just tenfold or 50-fold, comes back to us as organization owners 100 times or more. So that's on the people side. On the partnership side, as you already mentioned, when you go talk to somebody in their native language or make the attempt, and you can at least have a low level conversation, their attitude changes. They see that, like you said, that you care, so they care more. And you've shown this interest and not in a surface level way, really, really deep, integral way. Like, I see that you're committed to this relationship with me, so I'm that 10 times more committed. So that's where the partnerships come through. The profit is the result of doing those two things. Okay? When we do business with people we know, like, and trust, and vice versa, the profit is the result we don't control that goes up 100 times because we've done those things. If we've given enough support to the people to do it and have an accurate timeline for that to fold out.
So, what advice? Let's talk about advice now, because I'm sure people are like
Right.
listening and going, "Oh, I need this. I know I need this." What advice would
Mhm.
you give to companies looking to expand into multilingual markets, but feel overwhelmed by the cultural or linguistic barriers?
The biggest advice I could give to anybody who's looking to jump into multilingual markets is setting the right expectation. Don't think you have to be fluent before you can start.
Mm,
Right? We don't actually, as much as we can take our students from zero to fluency in a very short time period, it isn't about fluency. Fluency is what you need when you're negotiating a big contract with lawyers and accountants, and you need to be very specific and precise in what you say, or you're reading contracts, which there is an element to that when it comes to fluency. Realistically, we only need to be conversational, right? We need to be just conversational enough where we can ask somebody how their day was and respond in kind, right? We
mm,
just need to be conversational. So it's the advice I would give is you just need to start small, but you do need to start because
mm.
you can't wait a year and say, well, I'll do it in a year, because you won't be a year behind, you're going to be 3 years behind anybody else who's already invested. So
Yeah.
my advice is you just need to get started because it will build its own momentum. And language learning is like a flywheel. It takes a lot of effort on the front end to get going, right? We've all, heard that concept, the flywheel. It takes tons of effort up front to get going, but once it starts to spin, it starts to get its own momentum, and then eventually it just spins in perpetuity. And language learning is the exact same. When we get going, it's difficult because we're still learning how to count to 10, what the days of the week are, the months. So that's the front end effort. So we need to get started on those things, right? We have to start at the beginning, but we don't, it's not so insurmountable that we have to target fluency. We just need to be conversational. And I think that's where most people say, wow, this is way too big for me to take on because it's going to be years before I'm fluent and I'm negotiating with the Prime Minister of Canada, right? That's not where we're going. We're just having a conversation. So it's a much shorter path than most people expect. So we just need to get started.
Yeah, and I like that you said you start small, just get started, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
you're not going to learn this in one day, right? So you have to
Yeah.
play the long game. And also action over perfection. You don't have to be perfect. And
Mm,
if you're waiting to be perfect in anything in life, you're missing the boat. It's moving along,
yeah.
especially in today's day and age with how fast we're seeing AI take off,
Yeah.
right? Like even 6 months ago, where AI was and where it is today, it's completely transformed. So how is
Mhm.
AI impacting your business? And how is it also impacting language learning?
You know what? Most people would look at it as a threat. We use live tutors exclusively, right? They're all professionally trained educators and teachers, and they're also native speakers.
Mm.
And AI, from the outside looking in, looks like a major disruptor. And in fact, it's always something that's on my desk thinking about is this replacing something we're doing? And to a degree, it is. But the AI side of things, from my perspective, is an enabler. But what AI has done is it's gotten a lot of people who wouldn't attempt to speak another language to get in. They can get in easy, they can get in safe, they can get in where it's fun. Right. I won't list them off here, but there's lots of different phone apps and tools we can all use that are a lot of fun. And I do have some personal friends where, man, I have tried to get them into live classes. They are just not there yet, but they're playing the games on their phone and they're learning a few phrases along the way and feel great doing it. That's what AI has done is it's gotten a lot of people into language learning that otherwise wouldn't have even tried. Okay. So it's made this really safe and fun space for people to try and practice learning languages. And from, the educator in me, from the entrepreneur in me, I feel enlightened by that. But there's also a ton of tools for organizations like us who help people take their language from I'm playing a game and I've got a 400-day streak, but I still really don't know how to speak Spanish
Mhm.
to, you know what? I want to go to Puerto Vallarta next summer and I want to be able to talk to the locals and the taxi drivers and right the restaurant staff in their language. It would be so much fun. That's where we take them from their level to the next level on the live tutoring side. But we also can use AI tools to give somebody that 24/7 practice, but they get the guidance from us on what is going to make the biggest impact in their language learning journey as opposed to just trying to figure it out along the way. So the coaching aspect and the accountability side of it is through the roof.
Yeah, and that happens in anything, right? In
Yeah.
teaching, I have kids who are teenagers, and if they didn't have teachers who are working with them, learning virtual is great, but at the same time, you're
Yeah.
not learning as much. And I know my daughter's
Yeah.
in school during the year; she's doing virtual classes now, and she wants to get ahead, and it's fantastic. But I know she's not learning it as much as she would
Mm,
be if she was having that interaction daily with a teacher, and they're seeing where she's stuck on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, if she's not going to use this going forward, like you said, for those companies that really want to expand globally, this is the way to go. Your team is not going to
mhm.
learn this on an app for 10 minutes a day. I have friends that use it.
Yeah.
They don't know more than they did a year ago. Right. But
Yeah.
they're like, I do it for 10 minutes every day. And I'm like, well, what do you know? What can you say to me? Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know. you
I
know,
don't
so
know. That's
it
right.
depends on the goals. Right.
Yeah.
So question, this is interesting because you came from a marketing background. Now you're the
Mhm.
CEO of Live Lingua. And so I'm really excited about this piece of the conversation, which is visibility, marketing, growth,
Yeah.
because you shared your background. You've grown yourself over since you came out of university, and you've
Mhm.
also grown businesses. So coming from a marketing space, one, who is your ideal company? Do you have one? Are you pretty agnostic? Do you serve, do you have a sweet spot, or do certain companies seem to get better results? And also, then we'll go into the marketing side because I really want those listening
Yeah.
going like, hey, I'm your person. Or they're intrigued by your growth over the years and they want to learn how you did it.
Mhm. 100%. So the companies that were see the best results from us have kind of landed in a couple of different industries.
Okay.
Some are pretty obvious and some are less obvious. The more obvious ones, hospitality. Okay.
Mm.
We work with hotels. I'll give you one example in Gibraltar, right? If you know the geography of Gibraltar, it's actually a UK territory right at the tip of Spain. Really unique place, but they have English and Spanish speaking staff, but most of their clientele is English speaking. So there's a perfect example, not just extrinsically for working with their clients, right? If they have Spanish staff working with English clients, that's obvious. But what they found is an amazing cohesive or cohort of people. Now they have their English staff speaking Spanish to their native Spanish speakers, and then vice versa. It has created this team dynamic. So hospitality is the obvious one. The
Mm.
less obvious is medical services, believe it or not. So we work with a number of different medical service institutions with nurses and doctors that have a high contingent, particularly Spanish speaking patients, but they're using our services to teach their LPNs how to speak Spanish so they can deal better with their patients. I mean, we're not their first solution. We haven't been the first solution. We're just the best one they're moving on to. Anybody who's using translators specifically, they can be very expensive and not very timely. So any business, particularly medical services that are using translators to communicate with their patients, this is a perfect alignment for. And then the third vertical is in manufacturing, right? Throughout the US, there's a lot of manufacturing has been outsourced to Latin America. So
Mm.
internally, organizations that are doing business throughout Latin America or Spain who need Spanish, or they're bringing in overseas workers who need to learn English to work in their plants. So there's manufacturing, medical services, and hospitality are the three biggest industries we've seen the biggest impact on.
Wow, thank you. That's amazing. So how are you with Live Lingua, especially
Yeah,
coming from your marketing background? How are
yeah,
you all getting in front of these industries? Like what, as far as marketing goes, I'm a big believer in it's not a one size fits all. What works for one
yeah,
company may not be the same for another. So what are some of the things that you've tried that you've tried that maybe haven't worked as effectively? And what are you
yeah.
doubling down on in 2025 this year, marketing wise, if there is one, if there is something?
Totally is. We've actually gone all the way back to old school grassroots marketing.
Mm.
So our business before my time was built almost exclusively on SEO and has done really, really well. When we talk about AI and some disruption going on there, SEO has been majorly disrupted with what we call no-click search now, with Gemini and ChatGPT giving us all this great information that we're trying to search for, but no resources or attribution on where that information came from, right? So that's disrupted our business. So we're actually going back to grassroots and particularly working with small to medium sized businesses and getting to live events.
Mm.
There is no replacement, again, for being in front or kneecap to kneecap with a person so you can see what they look like, what they sound like, shake a hand, whatever it happens to be. But going back to live events has been our number one source for being able to, one, find new clients, but to evaluate whether they're right for us, right? Because implementing or investing in a language program isn't right for every organization
Mm.
and sometimes you need to grow into it. So we get a chance to very quickly determine whether they're right fit for us, and then they get the chance whether we're a right fit for them. So,
Mm.
man, going back to old school, right, shaking hands and having conversations and coffees, which sounds kind of funny because my background is in digital marketing and tend to default to digital ads and all that. That is a part of it, but our biggest source of connection and of course projects has been live events.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from many people. I just heard that yesterday from someone on
Yeah.
the podcast as well. Like they're doubling down on live events and
Mhm.
conferences and things like that, and getting in front of people and having those building those relationships because relationships
Yeah.
matter. So, Stacy, what is before I go to what's next for you all? Can you talk about some of the challenges you've seen a lot of growth? What are some of the challenges that you faced as you were growing, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, my number one challenge across not just Live Lingua, but in all of the businesses I've been a part of, and like I mentioned, a number of different industries, construction, fintech, financial services, has always been people.
Mm.
Business at the end of the day is always about people, and finding and nurturing and working and investing in good people has always been the biggest problem. And continues to be. So I go off the 10 is not 10, 10 is 2, right? Where you have to go through 10 people to find the 2 that you're really looking for. Not to say the other 8 are not great people, or not great professionals. They're just not the right fit. So we do have to go through 10 people to find 2. That is always the biggest issue. How we circumvent, like, the challenge with finding the 2 is shortening the time to find them, right? We can spend months and invest thousands and thousands of dollars weeding out the other 8. It's how to get to the 2 quickly. And realistically, it's using AI tools, personality tests to start screening to make sure they're a cultural fit first, and then a skill fit after. Because if I've ever had to dismiss anybody for anything, it wasn't because they didn't have the skills to do the job. It's because they were generally not a cultural fit to our team, our vision, and our mission, and they just weren't buying into it. So I would love to be able to say there's all these marketing problems and here's your silver bullet, and all you need to do is implement this ad campaign, this funnel, this landing page. It comes down to people at the end of the day. Everything else can be tested and can be tweaked, but it's the biggest investment we'll ever make in any of our businesses is in other people and in our network. So do as much cultivation as we can in the people building business, because that's really what we're at Live Lingua. We're not just a language school. We are in the people building business. Our building our teachers to become better teachers, better parents, better brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and then of course building our students to become better professionals and a better version of themselves. And when you look at all of your businesses, whatever industry it is, as a people building business, things become a lot simpler. They don't become easier, they just become simpler.
Yeah, that's so good because you hear, or I'm not going to say you, me, I'll speak for me. I hear all the time, and I've heard from other guests on our show that culture, it starts within, right? It starts with the
Yeah.
culture within the business. And from a leadership perspective, you always hear, I always hear that everything's a mirror, right? What you're
Yeah.
seeing on the outside is a reflection of what's going on inside of you, whether it's with a personal relationship or whether it's in business or whatever, it's a reflection of what's going on with you. So whatever you're seeing outside of your business is a reflection of what's happening internally. So if you want to attract these dream clients, these dream customers, then you have to have your dream team inside, and it needs to start in there. And you need to be, like you said earlier, you used the phrase, and it's on the tip of my tongue, I can't remember what it is, but not just building relationships. It was something else, but you need to be able to cultivate that internally if you want to bring that out into the outside space. So the success on the outside is determinant on the success on the inside. And I love that you practice that. And so thank you for sharing that. So Stacy, what's next for Live Lingua? What's your big goals for, say, the next 12 months? Like, if we could bring you back in 12 months and revisit this conversation, what does success look like for you?
Well, we're on a mission to go out and help 10 million students.
Ooh.
Whatever that looks like. 10 million students, that's a lot of names and phone numbers and emails, right? But however we help them, that isn't always 10 million students taking live tutoring classes. So if we can support 10 million people in their language journey, that's our overall mission, right? So in 12 months' time, if we're to look back, we're going to have a very robust content channel on YouTube, right? To get specific, we'll have a community of language learners where it's not just coming from us, right? It is coming from each other, right? The cohort or community of language learners where it's great to be able to get some instruction from a live tutor about your Spanish or your German. But when you can talk with other students who can also give you those inputs, that's a large part of it. And then the third biggest piece in 12 months' time is having those 10 million students in a community helping each other, practicing their language of choice. because we don't learn in a vacuum. I don't care which books you read, which PDFs you download, which free ebooks you get, and right, try and memorize all these vocabulary and grammar. At the end of the day, we only learn a language through practicing, listening and learning, and having that community of language learners is my ultimate mission. Whether or not we make a dollar or we, make $100 million is again, people, partnership, and profits. The profits is third for a reason. Is once we cultivate the people and the partnerships, everything else takes care of itself. So if we have that community of 10 million, I don't know if we'll get there in 12 months, Heidi. Maybe it'll take 13 or 14 months. But having that community of 10 million language learners that we can support, that's what really lights me up every day.
Awesome. And we're rooting for you. We're here cheering you on. And also, we're going to share this out. So, Stacy, can you share so people can help share you? How can they connect with you and how can they learn more about Live Lingua? Where can they go?
Absolutely. So first place to start is always our website, livelingua.com, livelingua.com, livelingua.com. And of course, you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I know all the links will be posted in the show notes, but it's The Real Stacy Richter is my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to reach out directly, whether it's you're looking for a language program for your business, or you just want to expand your network and talk about business growth in general. I'm a total nerd over all of it. So I love to talk about those kitchen table stories and hear some of the F up stories too. I mean, that's something we haven't even talked about. Maybe
Bloopers matter,
follow-up.
Right? Bloopers are fun to look
That's
back on.
right.
They matter.
Yeah, that's right. So feel free to reach out directly through our website or my LinkedIn profile. I'll be happy to chat.
Awesome. So go to The Real Stacy Richter on LinkedIn, go to livelingua.com. We also are going to have all of Stacy's and Live Lingua's links in the show notes. So if you're listening to us you can go there now, grab them. If not, if you're driving, don't worry about it. We got you. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Stacy and I are appreciative that you're here watching with us together on YouTube. Please drop a note below for him, a comment below, connect with him. Would love it if you hit that little button. It's one word. It says subscribe. That allows us to ding you and let you know when we have more amazing guests like Stacy on the show. If you know of a company or someone that could use Live Lingua in their life and their business to grow, they want to expand globally and they could definitely learn more about Live Lingua and this would benefit them, please share it with them. Please share this episode. My goal for this podcast is to change the stat. We see the stats numbers are ridiculous on how many businesses fail within the first 5 years. We want to flip the script on that and flip those stats into more thriving and succeeding within the first 5 years. And we can only grow together with you all sharing this out. Our guests come on here and I'm so grateful for their time, sharing their time, wisdom on here with us so that we can help more businesses grow. So we would love you to support that in helping us share this with more people. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. If you have an opportunity to hit the review button, please do give us 5 stars. We'd love that. That allows these platforms the algorithm and all the things to push us out more, to share these episodes and Stacy and Live Lingua with more people. I promised y'all a gift, so here it is. Take it down. If you are looking to grow your visibility and you feel like you've tried different things and you're just not getting the traction you want, or you're open to new ideas, then go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale Blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and grab it for free and let us know what you think. Stacy, before we wrap up and I let you go back to your life and your business, is there anything that you'd like to share or say that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't touch on today?
For anybody who's thinking about starting a business or they're in their business and struggling, the only thing I want to put forward is don't quit. Don't quit. You never know where it's going to turn. I've had dozens and dozens of times where I'm just like, man, it would be so much easier just to have a 9 to 5 and go do it. And don't get me wrong, like 90% of it really sucks, but that 10% that's left over, it is so worth the trouble and the challenge. And you just don't know where that journey is going to take you. I've lived out my dream. I'm the CEO of a multinational corporation. It's not how I thought I would get here, but I'm here. And again, it took 20 plus years and I didn't quit, even though I could have many, many times. So keep going, but find a network like Heidi and everybody else who's listening. Jump into your cohorts and your groups. There's always somebody who's been where you want to go, and there's always somebody who's been where you are. So lean on your people and don't quit.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, Stacy. We're going to end it there because persistence is key. They say consistency is key. And I do believe in that. But I also think
Yeah.
persistence outweighs
Mhm.
consistency because you can show up one day, not show up the next day. As long as you keep persisting and keep moving through and
Yeah.
going, okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to show up today. That's what matters. And so I love that. And like you said, lean on the people who have been there. I think for many of us, when we're starting, we can look at those people that are far ahead and go, oh my gosh, they're so far ahead. I can't get there. And we compare ourselves. And that comparisonitis can also be a paralyzer. So don't compare don't compare your chapter 2 with someone else's chapter 20. Lean on those people, ask the questions. And I love that you said that because I think that's key. I don't think we do that enough, right? We don't want to
No.
be seen as that person that doesn't know or that doesn't know what we don't know when it's
Mhm.
true. We don't know what we don't know. So just ask the questions because people want to help, just like you were sharing when you show you care, when you're trying to learn a language, even though you may not be perfect at it, it shows that you care. When you're asking questions, people want to help. So if those of you are starting out and you want to ask questions and you're like, how did Stacy do this? But I'm too scared to reach out, just reach out. He's a nice guy. He
Yeah.
wants to help you. We all want to see you succeed. Right. So I love it, Stacy. This has been so good.
Yeah.
I don't want
Awesome.
it to end, but I got to let you go. So thank you, Stacy, so much for your time today. This has been amazing. I knew it would be. I've been waiting for 2 weeks for this, and I'm
Yeah.
so excited that it was here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Appreciate you.
Thank you all for listening to Stacy and I today, and we will see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlights.